The moment I made that joke about private videos at dinner, I should have known Nathan would find a way to make me pay for it. But how could I have predicted that my quiet, passive husband would turn into someone who could destroy my entire world with a single folder full of receipts? Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible stories. It started on a Tuesday evening in October. The autumn air was crisp, and our suburban home felt warm and inviting, with the smell of Margaret's famous pot roast filling the kitchen. Nathan's parents had come over for our monthly family dinner, along with my sister Tara and her husband Martin. 8-year-old Ella was picking at her vegetables, making faces that would normally make me laugh. But I wasn't really focused on Ella or the dinner conversation. My mind kept drifting to Benji and the text he'd sent that afternoon. Can't stop thinking about yesterday. When can we do it again? Isolde, you're awfully quiet tonight, Margaret observed, her sharp eyes studying me across the dining table. Nathan's mother had always made me uncomfortable with the way she seemed to see right through me. Just tired from work, I said, forcing a smile. You know how demanding project coordination can be. Nathan glanced up from his plate. You've been working a lot of late nights lately. There was something in his tone that made me defensive. Well, someone has to bring in the bigger paycheck around here. An uncomfortable silence fell over the table. Martin cleared his throat and started talking about his latest construction project, but I could feel everyone's eyes on me. That's when I decided to lighten the mood with what I thought was a harmless joke. You know what Nathan and I should do? I said, taking a sip of wine and grinning mischievously. We should make one of those private videos. All couples do it these days, right? It's totally normal. The silence that followed was deafening. Ella looked confused, asking, "What kind of videos, Mummy?" Tara giggled nervously. "Oh, Isolde, you're so modern." But Nathan's face had gone completely white. He set down his fork carefully, the way he did when he was trying to control his emotions. "That's not really appropriate dinner conversation," he said quietly. "Oh, come on," I laughed, feeling emboldened by the wine. "Don't be such a prude. I bet Margaret and Jeffrey have some interesting home movies tucked away somewhere." Margaret's fork clattered against her plate. "Isolde." Jeffrey shifted uncomfortably in his seat, while Martin stared down at his food. Even Tara looked embarrassed now, but I couldn't stop myself. Something about Nathan's obvious discomfort made me want to push harder. "I'm just saying we're all adults here. There's nothing wrong with couples documenting their intimate moments. It's actually supposed to be great for relationships. Adds excitement, you know." "Mum, what are you talking about?" Ella asked, her young voice cutting through the tension. Nathan stood up abruptly, his chair scraping against the hardwood floor. "Excuse me," he said, and walked out of the dining room without another word. "Now look what you've done," Margaret said, her voice cold with disapproval. "What did I do?" I protested. "I was just making conversation. Nathan's the one who can't take a joke." "That wasn't a joke, Isolde," Martin said quietly. "That was inappropriate." "Oh, please," I rolled my eyes. "You're all being way too uptight about this." But as I looked around the table at their faces, Margaret's obvious disgust, Jeffrey's embarrassment, Martin's disappointment, even Tara's uncomfortable fidgeting, I realized I might have gone too far. The rest of the dinner passed in strained small talk. Nathan never came back to the table. When his parents finally left, Margaret barely said goodbye to me, and Jeffrey avoided eye contact entirely. "That was awkward," Tara whispered to me as she helped clear the dishes. "They're just old-fashioned," I said defensively. "There's nothing wrong with what I said." After everyone left, I found Nathan in our bedroom, sitting on the edge of the bed with his head in his hands. "Are you seriously going to sulk about this all night?" I asked. He looked up at me, and I was surprised by the expression on his face. It wasn't anger or embarrassment. It was something deeper, sadness maybe, or disappointment. "Why would you say something like that in front of my parents? In front of Ella?" "It was just a joke, Nathan." God, you're so sensitive. Was it a joke, though? He asked quietly. Or were you trying to tell me something? The question caught me off guard. For a moment, I felt a flicker of guilt thinking about the video Benji and I had made just 2 days earlier in his apartment. But I pushed that feeling away. You're being paranoid, I said. I was just trying to lighten the mood. Nathan studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said. If you say so. But something in his tone made me uneasy. It was too calm, too accepting. The Nathan I knew would have argued with me, would have gotten frustrated and raised his voice. This quiet resignation was something new. That night, as I lay in bed next to my husband, I couldn't shake the feeling that something had shifted. Nathan was lying perfectly still beside me, but I could tell he wasn't asleep. I thought about texting Benji, but Nathan's phone was on the nightstand, and I didn't want to risk the notification sound waking him up. Instead, I stared at the ceiling and replayed the evening in my mind. Maybe I had been a little inappropriate, but it wasn't like I'd actually told them about the affair. It was just a silly comment about private videos. Lots of married couples made those kinds of jokes, right? The problem was Nathan. He'd always been too serious, too uptight about everything. That's probably why I'd been drawn to Benji in the first place. Benji was fun and spontaneous. He didn't analyze every little thing I said or make me feel like I had to walk on eggshells all the time. As I finally drifted off to sleep, I made a mental note to be more careful about my jokes in the future. Not because I'd done anything wrong, but because Nathan clearly couldn't handle them. I had no idea that my husband was lying awake beside me, planning something that would change both our lives forever. The next morning felt normal enough. Nathan made coffee and got Ella ready for school, while I showered and got dressed for work. He was quieter than usual, but I chalked it up to lingering embarrassment from the night before. I'll pick up Ella from school today, he said as I grabbed my purse and keys. Actually, I can get her, I replied. I'm meeting Benji after work to go over the Morrison project, but we should be done by 3:30. Nathan paused in the middle of buttering Ella's toast. Benji again. He's the lead developer on Morrison. We have to coordinate. I kept my voice casual, professional. You know how these tech projects are. Right, Nathan said, but there was something in his tone I couldn't quite identify. At the office, I tried to focus on actual work, but Benji kept finding excuses to stop by my desk. Our company had an open floor plan, which usually made it easy to keep our interactions looking professional. But today, Benji seemed determined to push boundaries. Hey, gorgeous, he whispered as he leaned over my shoulder to look at my computer screen. Miss me? Benji, not here, I hissed, glancing around to make sure no one was listening. Relax. Everyone's in the conference room for the quarterly review. He moved closer, his breath warm against my ear. I've been thinking about our little movie all morning. My stomach dropped. You deleted that, right? Like we agreed? Of course, he said, but something in his smile made me nervous. Well, mostly. What do you mean, mostly? I mean, I deleted it from my phone. But you know how cloud storage works, right? Sometimes things get backed up automatically. I spun around in my chair to face him, keeping my voice low but urgent. Benji, you need to delete it completely. From everywhere. Why? It's not like anyone's going to see it. Besides, it's pretty hot. You looked amazing. That's not the point. We agreed. Ladies and gentlemen, the quarterly review has been moved to tomorrow, announced Sarah from accounting as she walked back into the main office area. Technical difficulties with the projector. Suddenly, the office was full of people again. Benji straightened up and put on his professional voice. So, about the Morrison timeline, I think we can have the beta testing completed by Friday. That sounds good, I replied, matching his professional tone. Let's discuss the details later. But as he walked away, he winked at me, and I felt a chill of anxiety. Benji was getting careless, and that scared me more than I wanted to admit. The rest of the day dragged by. I couldn't concentrate on anything. Every time my phone buzzed, I worried it might be Nathan asking questions I couldn't answer. Every time a coworker walked by my desk, I wondered if they'd overheard something they shouldn't have. At lunch, I called Tara. "Hey, sis, how are you feeling after last night's dinner disaster?" "It wasn't a disaster," I said defensively. "Everyone just overreacted." "Isolde, you basically talked about sex tapes in front of Nathan's parents and your 8-year-old daughter." "I made a joke about private videos. There's a difference." Tara sighed. "Look, I love you, but sometimes you say things without thinking about how they'll affect other people." Nathan looked really hurt. "Nathan's always hurt about something. He's too sensitive." "Or maybe you're not sensitive enough." The comment stung, partly because there might have been some truth to it, but I wasn't ready to admit that, even to myself. "I have to go," I said. "I'll talk to you later." At 3 o'clock, I met Benji in the parking lot. We drove separately to his apartment complex, a modern building about 10 minutes from the office. I'd been there 4 times before, always feeling a mix of excitement and guilt as I walked through his front door. "Finally," he said, pulling me into his arms the moment I stepped inside. "I've been thinking about you all day." "We need to talk about that video first," I said, pulling away from him. "Seriously? That's what you want to discuss right now?" "Yes, seriously. You need to delete it completely. From the cloud, from your backup drives, from everywhere." Benji rolled his eyes and walked over to his laptop. "Fine, if it'll make you feel better." I watched as he clicked through various folders and cloud storage accounts. He seemed to be deleting files, but I couldn't see the screen clearly from where I was standing. "There," he said, closing the laptop. "Happy now?" "You deleted everything?" "Everything," he confirmed, though he didn't meet my eyes when he said it. I should have insisted on checking for myself, but Benji was already moving closer, and despite my anxiety, I found myself responding to his touch. We ended up on his couch, and for the next hour I managed to forget about Nathan, about the dinner conversation, about all the complications in my life. It was 4:15 when I finally checked my phone. 3 missed calls from Nathan and 2 text messages. "Where are you? Ella's been waiting at school for 45 minutes. "Called the school. They said you never showed up. Heading there now." "Shit," I muttered, grabbing my clothes and getting dressed quickly. "What's wrong?" Benji asked from the couch, not bothering to get dressed. "I was supposed to pick up Ella. Nathan's going to be furious." "Just tell him the meeting ran long. It's not a big deal." But it felt like a big deal as I drove across town to the elementary school. Nathan's car was already in the parking lot, and I could see him and Ella sitting on the front steps of the building. Ella ran to me as I got out of my car. "Mommy, where were you? I waited and waited." "I'm so sorry, sweetheart. Mommy's work meeting ran longer than expected." Nathan walked over, his expression unreadable. "She was the last kid there. Mrs. Peterson had to stay late." I said I'm sorry. The Morrison project is really complicated, and Benji and I lost track of time going over the technical specifications. "Benji," Nathan repeated. "Right." There was something in the way he said the name that made me defensive. "Yes, Benji, he's the lead developer, Nathan. I have to work with him." "Of course you do." That night at dinner, Ella was quieter than usual. When I asked her about her day, she just shrugged. "Mrs. Peterson asked if everything was okay at home," she said finally. "She said I seemed sad lately." I felt a pang of guilt. "Everything's fine, honey. Mummy's just been busy with work." "Are you and Daddy fighting?" Nathan and I exchanged glances across the table. "No, sweetie," Nathan said gently. "Sometimes grown-ups just have different opinions about things. But we both love you very much." After Ella went to bed, Nathan and I sat in the living room watching TV. The silence between us felt heavy and uncomfortable. "I really am sorry about today," I said during a commercial break. "I know," Nathan replied, but he didn't look at me. "The Morrison project is just really demanding right now. Once it's finished, things will go back to normal." "Will they?" The question caught me off guard. What do you mean? I mean, you've been working late a lot lately, missing family dinners, forgetting to pick up Ella, coming home at strange hours. Is this really about work, Isolde? My heart started pounding. Of course it's about work. What else would it be about? Nathan turned to look at me then, and I saw something in his eyes I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger or suspicion. It was sadness mixed with a kind of quiet determination. I don't know, he said softly, but I think I'm going to find out. 2 weeks later, Nathan suggested we go out to dinner with some friends. It seemed like a peace offering after the tension that had been building between us, so I agreed. He chose Romano's, a cozy Italian restaurant downtown where we'd celebrated our 5th wedding anniversary. The group included Nathan's college friend Mike and his wife Jennifer, plus my sister Tara and Martin. Margaret and Jeffrey were also there. Apparently, Nathan had invited them without telling me first. "This is nice," I said as we settled into our seats at the large round table. "We should do this more often." "We used to," Nathan said quietly, "before you got so busy with work." I felt my cheeks flush. Was he really going to start this again, in front of everyone? "Some of us have demanding careers," I replied, keeping my voice light but with an edge that everyone at the table could hear. Mike jumped in quickly. "How's the tech industry treating you, Isolde? I hear it's pretty competitive." "It is, but I love the challenge. I'm working on this major project right now with one of our top developers. Very intense, very hands-on. I don't know why I added that last part. Maybe it was the wine, or maybe I was still irritated with Nathan for putting me on the spot. But the moment the words left my mouth, I saw Nathan's jaw tighten. "Hands-on?" Jennifer asked innocently. "That sounds interesting." "Oh, you know how these tech projects are," I said, warming to the topic. "Lots of late nights, lots of close collaboration. You really have to get to know your partner's working style." Tara was giving me warning looks from across the table, but I ignored her. Nathan was staring down at his pasta like it was the most fascinating thing in the world. "Speaking of partners," I continued, "Nathan and I were just talking about how couples need to keep things exciting, weren't we, honey?" Nathan looked up at me, his expression unreadable. "Were we?" "Oh, yes. In fact, I was telling everyone at our last family dinner that all modern couples should consider making private videos together. You know, to document their connection." The silence that followed was even more uncomfortable than it had been at our house. Mike and Jennifer exchanged glances. Martin put down his wineglass and stared at me. Margaret's face had gone completely white. "Isolde," Nathan said quietly, "maybe we should change the subject." "Why? There's nothing wrong with what I'm saying. Right, everyone? I mean, we're all adults here. We all know that successful relationships require creativity." "I think what Isolde means," Tara said desperately, "is that couples should communicate openly about their needs." "Exactly," I said, though that wasn't what I'd meant at all. "And sometimes that communication can be very visual, very intimate, very private." I was looking directly at Nathan as I said this, and I saw something flicker across his face. For just a moment, he looked like he was in physical pain. "You know what?" he said, standing up suddenly. "I just remembered I need to make a phone call. Excuse me." He walked toward the restaurant's lobby, leaving his phone on the table next to his plate. "That was subtle," Martin said dryly. "I don't know what you mean," I replied, but I was starting to feel uncomfortable. Everyone was looking at me like I'd done something wrong. "Isolde," Margaret said, her voice cold and controlled, "may I speak with you privately?" We walked to the ladies' room together, and Margaret wasted no time getting to the point. "What is wrong with you?" "Excuse me?" "You're humiliating my son in front of his friends. You're making inappropriate comments about your marriage, and you're acting like what? Like someone who's hiding something." The accusation hit closer to home than I wanted to admit, but I wasn't about to let Nathan's mother intimidate me. I'm not hiding anything. I'm just not as uptight as the rest of this family. Uptight? Margaret's voice rose slightly. You think it's uptight to expect a wife to show some respect for her husband, some discretion about private matters. Nathan's a grown man. He can handle a little teasing. Can he? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like he's barely holding it together. When we returned to the table, Nathan was back in his seat, but he seemed different somehow. More distant, more resolved. The rest of the dinner passed in strained conversation. Mike and Jennifer left early, claiming they had a babysitter to get home to. When the check came, Nathan paid without a word. In the car on the way home, I tried to break the silence. That was fun, I said, though we both knew it wasn't true. Was it? Oh, come on, everyone's just being oversensitive. I was making conversation. Nathan pulled into our driveway and turned off the engine, but he didn't get out of the car immediately. Isolde, can I ask you something? Sure. Are you happy? The question surprised me. What kind of question is that? A simple one. Are you happy with our marriage, with our life together? I felt a flutter of panic. Was this leading somewhere I didn't want to go? Of course I'm happy. Why would you ask that? Because lately you seem different, like you're somewhere else, even when you're here with me and Ella. I'm just stressed about work. You know how demanding my job is. Right, work. He was quiet for a moment. And this developer you're working with so closely, Benji? My heart started pounding. What about him? Nothing. Just wondering how long you've been working together. A few months. Why? Just curious. But there was something in his tone that made me think he was more than just curious. As we walked into the house, I found myself wondering what exactly Nathan had been doing during that phone call at the restaurant. That night, I lay awake thinking about Margaret's words. Was I really humiliating Nathan? Was I being inappropriate? The rational part of my brain knew the answer was yes. But the other part, the part that was tired of feeling guilty, tired of walking on eggshells, tired of pretending to be someone I wasn't, that part felt justified. Nathan had been distant and cold for months. He never wanted to do anything fun or spontaneous. He never made me feel desired or appreciated. Was it really so wrong that I'd found someone who did? But as I listened to Nathan's steady breathing beside me, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was about to change. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if I was prepared for what that change might bring. The shift in Nathan's behavior became impossible to ignore. Over the next week, he started doing things that seemed small but felt significant. He changed the password on his laptop. He started taking his phone with him everywhere, even to the bathroom. He began asking specific questions about my schedule. What time is your meeting with Benji tomorrow? He'd ask over breakfast. Around 2. Why? Just wondering. Will you be at the office or somewhere else? The office, probably. Maybe we'll grab coffee to discuss the timeline. Nathan would nod and make a note in his phone, like he was keeping track of something. It made me nervous, but I told myself I was being paranoid. Nathan wasn't the type to spy on his wife. He was too trusting, too passive for that kind of thing. On Thursday afternoon, I was at Benji's apartment when my phone rang. Nathan's name appeared on the screen. Don't answer it, Benji murmured against my neck. We were on his couch, and I was supposed to be home in an hour to help Ella with her homework. I have to. He'll worry if I don't. Hey, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Hi. How's the meeting going? Good. We're making progress on the user interface design. That's great. Listen, Ella's teacher called. She wants to set up a conference about Ella's behavior in class. Apparently, she's been having some issues. I sat up, suddenly focused. What kind of issues? Mrs. Peterson said she's been withdrawn and distracted. Her grades are slipping a little. Guilt washed over me. I'd been so caught up in my own drama that I hadn't really been paying attention to Ella's emotional state. I can be home in 20 minutes, I said. Actually, I already called and scheduled the conference for tomorrow at 4. I figured you could adjust your work schedule. Of course, yes, absolutely. Good, see you at home. After he hung up, I felt sick to my stomach. Benji was already getting dressed, seemingly unconcerned about the fact that my daughter was struggling. Everything okay? He asked casually. Ella's having problems at school. Her teacher thinks something's wrong at home. Kids are resilient. She'll be fine. The dismissive response bothered me more than it should have. She's 8 years old, Benji. She can sense when there's tension between her parents. So maybe you should tell Nathan the truth. Get a divorce, and then we can be together without all this sneaking around. The suggestion caught me off guard. Is that what you want? For me to leave Nathan? Benji shrugged. I want to be able to take you out in public. I want to spend whole nights with you instead of just stolen hours. Don't you want that too? I did want those things, but hearing him say it out loud made it real in a way that scared me. It's complicated. There's Ella to think about, and the house, and Nathan's comfortable. I get it. That's not what I meant. Isn't it? I left his apartment feeling more confused than ever. The drive home gave me time to think about what Benji had said. Was I staying with Nathan just because it was comfortable? Because it was easier than starting over? When I walked through the front door, I found Nathan and Ella at the kitchen table working on math homework together. The scene was so normal, so peaceful, that I felt a stab of something that might have been regret. Mommy! Ella jumped up and hugged me. Daddy's helping me with fractions. That's wonderful, sweetheart. Nathan looked up at me, and I was struck by how tired he looked. There were dark circles under his eyes, and his usually neat hair was disheveled. How was your meeting? He asked. Productive. We're almost ready for the next phase of testing. Good. That night, after Ella was in bed, Nathan and I sat in the living room pretending to watch TV. The silence between us felt heavier than usual. Nathan? I said finally. Yeah? Are we okay? I mean, are we going to be okay? He turned to look at me, and for a moment I saw a flicker of the man I'd married, the man who used to look at me like I was the most important person in his world. I don't know, Isolde, are we? I want us to be. Do you? Because lately it feels like you're already somewhere else. The observation was so accurate it took my breath away, but instead of admitting it, I deflected. You're the one who's been acting strange, changing passwords, keeping your phone locked, asking weird questions about my schedule. Maybe I have my reasons. What's that supposed to mean? Nathan was quiet for a long moment. Then he said, It means I'm not as oblivious as you think I am. The words sent a chill down my spine. Nathan, if you have something to say to me, just say it. Okay, I think you're having an affair. The accusation hung in the air between us like a physical thing. My first instinct was to deny it, to act outraged and offended. But something in Nathan's expression stopped me. Why would you think that? Because you're different. You're distant and secretive, and you make jokes about private videos like you're trying to tell me something without actually telling me. That's ridiculous. Is it? When's the last time you looked at me the way you used to? When's the last time you seemed genuinely happy to see me when you came home? I opened my mouth to argue, but no words came out. Because he was right, and we both knew it. I'm not having an affair, I said finally, but even to my own ears, the denial sounded weak. Nathan studied my face for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Okay, he said, if you say so. But as he got up and headed toward the stairs, I knew he didn't believe me. And for the first time since this whole thing started, I wondered if I was about to lose everything. The next morning, I woke up to find Nathan's side of the bed empty and cold. When I went downstairs, there was a note on the kitchen counter. Took Ella to school. See you at the parent conference at 4. I spent the day at the office trying to focus on actual work, but my mind kept wandering to the conversation with Nathan. He knew. Maybe he couldn't prove it yet, but he knew. At lunch, I called Tara. I think Nathan suspects something. I said without preamble. Suspects what? Don't play dumb, Tara. You know what? There was a long pause. Are you telling me you're actually having an affair? I'm telling you that Nathan thinks I am. Isolde, oh my God. Are you? I couldn't bring myself to say yes out loud, but my silence was answer enough. How could you do this? Nathan's a good man. He loves you. It's not that simple. It is that simple. You made a commitment. You have a daughter together. You don't understand what it's like being married to someone who takes you for granted. So you talk to him about it. You go to counseling. You don't sneak around with some other guy. His name is Benji, and he makes me feel alive again. He makes you feel alive. What about your family? What about Ella? The mention of my daughter hit like a punch to the stomach. I'm still a good mother. Are you? Because from what I hear, you've been missing school pickups and forgetting about homework help and making inappropriate jokes at family dinners. I hung up on her, but her words echoed in my head for the rest of the day. At 4 o'clock, I met Nathan at Ella's school. We sat in tiny plastic chairs in Mrs. Peterson's classroom while she explained that Ella had been having trouble concentrating and had started asking concerning questions about divorce. She asked me if kids always have to choose which parent to live with when their mommy and daddy stop loving each other, Mrs. Peterson said gently. I felt like I was going to be sick. Nathan reached over and took my hand, and for a moment it felt like we were a team again. We'll talk to her, Nathan said. Make sure she knows she's safe and loved. That would be good. Children are very perceptive. They pick up on tension at home even when parents think they're hiding it well. On the drive home, Nathan and I didn't speak, but when we pulled into our driveway, he turned to me with an expression I'd never seen before. I want you to end it, he said quietly. End what? Whatever's going on with Benji. I want you to end it, and I want you to transfer to a different project so you don't have to work with him anymore. Nathan, I'm not asking Isolde, I'm telling you, end it or I will. The threat was delivered so calmly, so matter-of-factly, that it scared me more than if he'd been shouting. What's that supposed to mean? It means I'm done pretending I don't know what's happening. It means I'm done letting you make a fool of me. And it means I'm done putting Ella through this. As we walked into the house together, I realized that my quiet, passive husband had become someone I didn't recognize. And for the first time, I wondered if I'd pushed him too far. The neighborhood barbecue was supposed to be a fresh start. Nathan suggested we go, saying it would be good for us to spend time with friends and neighbors as a family. I agreed, thinking it might help ease some of the tension that had been building between us since our conversation about Ella's teacher conference. But I should have known better. I should have known that putting me in a social situation when I was feeling defensive and cornered would only lead to trouble. The Hendersons' backyard was full of people I'd known for years. Neighbors from our street, parents from Ella's school, couples we'd socialized with back when Nathan and I were happy. Everyone seemed relaxed and cheerful, enjoying the warm Saturday afternoon. Nathan was manning the grill with Dave Henderson, talking about sports and laughing at Dave's terrible jokes. Ella was running around with the other kids, playing tag and seeming genuinely happy for the first time in weeks. For a moment, I let myself imagine that everything was normal. Isolde, called Susan Martinez from across the patio, come settle an argument for us. I walked over to where Susan was standing with 3 other women from the neighborhood. They were all holding drinks and laughing about something. What's the argument? I asked. We're talking about keeping marriages exciting after kids, Susan explained. Linda says date nights are the key, but Karen thinks it's more about spontaneity. What do you think? Asked Karen. I should have given a safe, generic answer. I should have said something about communication or shared interests. But the wine was making me feel bold, and Nathan's ultimatum from the week before was still fresh in my mind. Honestly, I said, taking a sip of my drink, I think couples need to be more adventurous, more creative. Creative how? Linda asked. Well, for example, Nathan and I have been experimenting with making private videos together. The words were out of my mouth before I could stop them. The four women stared at me in shocked silence. "Private videos?" Susan repeated. "You know, intimate recordings, for our own personal collection." I felt a reckless energy building inside me. "It's actually incredibly exciting, very revealing." "Isolde," Karen said uncomfortably, "maybe we should talk about something else." But I couldn't stop myself. The combination of wine, stress, and the need to prove that I was still desirable and exciting overrode any sense of discretion I might have had. "Oh, come on, we're all adults here. There's nothing wrong with documenting your passion. In fact, I bet Nathan and I have some of the hottest footage in the neighborhood." The silence that followed was deafening. Linda was staring at her drink, Karen was looking around desperately for an escape route, and Susan's face had gone completely red. I think I hear my husband calling me," Susan mumbled, and all four women scattered in different directions. But the damage was already done. I could see people whispering and glancing in my direction. The comfortable party atmosphere had shifted, and I was at the center of it. That's when I noticed Nathan standing about 10 feet away, holding a plate of hamburgers, and staring at me with an expression I'd never seen before. It wasn't anger or embarrassment. It was something deeper and more final. "Nathan," I called out, walking over to him with a bright smile. "Did you hear what I was telling the girls about our private video collection?" The plate slipped from Nathan's hands and crashed to the ground, hamburgers scattering across the patio. Several people turned to look at the noise. "You what?" he said quietly. "I was just telling them how adventurous we are, how we like to document our intimate moments." Nathan's face had gone completely white. "You told our neighbors that we make sex tapes." "I told them we're not boring," I said defensively, "that we know how to keep things exciting." "Isolde," he said, his voice barely above a whisper, "we don't make sex tapes." "Well, no, but they don't know that. You were just what? Lying about our private life? Making up stories about intimate videos that don't exist?" The conversation was attracting attention now. Dave Henderson had stopped grilling and was openly staring at us. Margaret and Jeffrey, who had arrived a few minutes earlier, were standing near the back fence looking mortified. "Nathan, you're overreacting," I said, but even as the words left my mouth, I knew I'd gone too far. "Am I? Because it seems like you're either lying about making videos with me, or you're talking about videos you made with someone else." The accusation hung in the air like a bomb waiting to explode. I could feel dozens of eyes on us, could hear the party conversations dying down as people strained to listen. "I don't know what you're implying," I said, but my voice sounded weak and unconvincing. "Don't you?" Nathan bent down and started picking up the scattered hamburgers, his movements sharp and angry. "Because I'm starting to think you do." Margaret appeared at my elbow, her face tight with disapproval. "Perhaps you two should continue this conversation at home," she said quietly. "There's nothing to continue," I said loudly. "Nathan's just being oversensitive as usual." "Oversensitive?" Nathan stood up, holding the plate of ruined food. "My wife just told half the neighborhood that we make pornography together, and I'm being oversensitive." A collective gasp went up from the people standing nearby. Ella, who had been playing with the other children, came running over. "Daddy, what's pornography?" she asked innocently. The question was like a slap across the face. I looked around at all the shocked, disapproving faces staring back at me and realized what I'd done. "Ella, honey, go play with the other kids," Nathan said gently. "But Daddy..." "Now, Ella." She ran off, but I could see her glancing back at us with confusion and worry. "Nathan," I started, but he held up his hand to stop me. "We're leaving," he said. "Get your purse." "We can't just leave. People will think..." "People will think what, Isolde? That we have problems? That my wife says inappropriate things at social gatherings? That our marriage is falling apart?" His voice was getting louder, and more people were turning to stare. "Because all of those things are true." I felt tears starting to build behind my eyes. "Nathan, please, can we just..." Can we just what? Pretend this didn't happen? Pretend you didn't just humiliate both of us in front of our friends and neighbors? Pretend you weren't talking about intimate videos that you've apparently made with someone who isn't your husband? The final accusation was delivered loud enough for everyone to hear. A murmur went through the crowd, and I saw several people pulling out their phones. I never said I made videos with anyone else, I protested weakly. You didn't have to say it, Nathan replied. We both know the truth. He walked over to where Ella was standing with a group of children and took her hand. Come on, sweetheart, we're going home. But Daddy, I was having fun. I know, but it's time to go. As Nathan led Ella toward the gate, he turned back to me one more time. Are you coming, or are you staying to tell everyone more stories about our private life? I followed them to the car in silence, acutely aware of all the eyes watching our exit. The drive home was the longest 15 minutes of my life. Ella kept asking what was wrong, and Nathan kept telling her everything was fine, but his knuckles were white where he gripped the steering wheel. When we got home, Nathan sent Ella to her room to play and turned to face me in the living room. I want you out, he said calmly. What? I want you to pack a bag and stay somewhere else tonight. I need time to think, and I need space from you. Nathan, you can't be serious. I made a mistake, but... A mistake? His voice was deadly quiet. You told our neighbors we make sex tapes. You implied that intimate videos exist when they don't, at least not with me. You humiliated me, you confused and upset our daughter, and you did it all with a smile on your face like you were enjoying it. I wasn't enjoying it. I was just trying to... To what? Make me look like a fool? Make yourself look exciting and adventurous? Prove that you're more interesting than boring old Nathan? The accuracy of his assessment hit like a physical blow. That's not what I was trying to do. Then what were you trying to do, Isolde? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you were either lying about our private life or telling the truth about someone else's. I opened my mouth to deny it again, but the words wouldn't come, because he was right, and we both knew it. Pack a bag, Nathan said again. I'll call you tomorrow when I've decided what I want to do. What about Ella? What about her? She's my daughter too. She'll be fine with me. Nathan, please, we can work this out. Can we? Because I'm not sure we can. I'm not sure I want to. As I went upstairs to pack a bag, I could hear Nathan on the phone with someone, his voice low and serious. I wondered who he was calling and what he was planning. I had no idea that my husband was already 3 steps ahead of me, and that everything I'd done, every lie I'd told, every inappropriate comment I'd made, every moment I'd spent with Benji, had been carefully documented and was about to be used against me in ways I never could have imagined. I spent the night at Tara's, replaying the barbecue in my head until I wanted to scream. She opened the door, took one look at me and said, You told the entire neighborhood you and Nathan make sex tapes? I was trying to be fun. You sounded insane. The next morning, Nathan asked me to meet him downtown. I told myself it would be counseling. It was a law office. He was already there in a charcoal suit, calm and terrifyingly put together. A woman in a steel grey blazer introduced herself as his attorney and started dealing evidence across the table like playing cards. Photo of me walking into Benji's building, his hand on my back. Hotel receipt I swore was a client lunch. Screenshots of every thirsty text I thought I'd deleted. And finally, the video, our video, sent anonymously from Benji's own IP address. The lawyer's voice never rose. Mr. Rourke has done this with at least 2 other married women. He keeps trophies and burns the women when he's bored. Nathan finally spoke. I'm filing for divorce and full custody of Ella. I laughed, hysterical. Courts don't give fathers full custody. They do when the mother misses school pickups, forgets parent-teacher conferences, and lets her boyfriend film her while her daughter is at dance class. He slid the papers over. Sign and keep a shred of privacy, or fight and watch every frame of that video become public record. I signed on Friday. A month later, I was unpacking boxes in a 1-bedroom that smelled like cat pee while Nathan tucked Ella into the bedroom that used to be hers, in the house that used to be mine. I ran into Benji once in the office elevator. He smirked, said, "Hey, stranger," and got off on the third floor to hit on the new receptionist. Ella comes every other Saturday now. She calls me Isolde half the time because that's what the new girlfriend uses. She asks why I don't live with Daddy anymore, and I still don't have an answer that doesn't make me sound like the villain. Nathan never raised his voice, never lost control. He just gathered proof, waited, and took everything that mattered. I thought I was the exciting one. Turns out the quiet guy in the corner was the dangerous one all along. He just waited until he didn't need me anymore to prove it.